And now I'm going to do my formal good morning and welcome. This is a really exciting series, or I should say part 2 of a series that Cora with Rural Aspirations and I at the Department of Education have coordinated and put together for you around interdisciplinary arts integration. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Anderson, and I'm the Visual and Performing Arts Content Specialist at the department. And I'm really excited to have both my arts ed colleagues here, but also our other colleagues from other disciplines. This is going to be really exciting for us to go through this experience. So again, the purpose of these sessions, these next 3 sessions, is to really lay out the foundation and the framework and to help you get started on developing an interdisciplinary arts integration plan for an experience for your students. And we're hopeful that as we go into next year, but of course we don't really know what next year is going to be for everybody. So we're very flexible on this plan. We're hoping that we're going to have some more phases to this where we'll be able to double back around and help with expanding some of your projects and lending additional support. But again, we're going to let everybody get the year started and offer whatever support and help that we can there. Since we're not a huge group and we have lots of time for our first session today, you're welcome to put questions in the chat box if you want, but I would love to try to direct you away from the chat and more just to turn your microphone on. You know, I would stay on mute just for background noise, but if you do have something that you want to say or you want to ask a question or make a comment, please just chime in. Cora and I are very comfortable with that. And we will stop at some logical places for questions and feedback. But really, along the way, don't feel like you can't interrupt us. Just fire away with questions, comments, and whatnot. And anything that does end up in the chat box, if it's a private question to me or whatever, I'll try to respond back to you. And like I said, we are going to take some breaks along the way a little bit just to get up and move and stretch and whatnot. But I'm really excited to turn it over to Cora now because she has some really fantastic materials to present to you. So take it away, Cora.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces and also some folks that I'm not familiar with. So thanks for joining this session and joining this journey, trying to develop a unit for a really kind of scary and unknown year that's coming up, right? I've been working with schools all summer long and just want you to know that I'm right there with you as far as that sort of, I don't know if all of you are feeling this, but just kind of a low level of anxiety that's sort of permeating the summer. And so
low level of anxiety. I don't feel a low level at all.
Right. It's just so, I think it's so humbling for me to be a part of all of your journeys and in thinking about and getting into a place where you're inspired for this year, this coming year. It's really easy to get kind of down about all of the barriers and all of the constraints that we have coming in, but it's your inspiration and your excitement that's going to really turn around and get right into those kids when they come back in the fall, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person. So I have designed a process for you today that I've used for multiple years now, working with schools developing interdisciplinary project design. So I'm going to share with you that process, and then I'm just going to guide you to working through it. So today is really an opportunity to set the foundation for that, and I'll go through the agenda with you. And then the next couple of times that we meet are really work sessions for you with guided facilitation. So Jason and I will be popping in and out of your Zoom rooms, and you'll be in the Zoom rooms with the folks that you're working with. Or if you're representing a team, but you're here individually, then we hope to put you with some other folks who are individual but representing a team. So you'll have someone to work with in those Zoom rooms. So
And Cora,
go
before
ahead.
we go forward, I should have done this before I turn it over to you, but since we are a small group, maybe we should go around and do just some brief introductions of what
Well,
people's content
I
area.
do have time for that.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. A plus.
I,
Picking up
I haven't
where I
forgotten. I
dropped the
do
ball.
want to know
Nice work.
everybody's names. Okay, so I just want to kind of go through where we are and where we've been. So we did do a phase 1 of this project earlier this summer. We had 2 different sessions, 2 different 2-hour sessions. Part 1 was Introduction to Interdisciplinary Curriculum Design, and I provided some field examples. If you weren't able to be at that, I believe Jason has them recorded. But I am also available via email. If you want to just reach out and hear more about those examples, I'm happy to share those with you. The second part was community partnerships and collaborative assessment. So we really looked at how do we expand out into the community. There are lots of community organizations right now that are really thinking about how to support and work with schools. And so this is an opportunity for us to think about what does that mean and what does that take when we bring another organization into our schools or into our teaching process. How do you do that? And then thinking about collaborative assessment, really utilizing that authentic audience and your community partners to be really a part of providing students with some really solid feedback. So, so if there's any questions about either of those sessions, please let me know, and I'd be happy to talk with you about any of them or share documents, whatever works for you. So this is the second part, and this is sort of the work session. So today we're really going to begin to develop that big idea that you have. And I know I've spoken with some of you have the idea. Some of you are working with teams where the idea is very formulated and you're trying to figure out how to put your own discipline into that. And some of you, I imagine, are probably right at the beginning where you're not really sure what it is that you're building. So there are multiple entry points for this work, and I personally don't have any expectation for you all to be in the same place. So I think that this is going to be the challenge for Jason and I'd like for you to hold us accountable as far as making sure that we're providing you with what you need to be able to get this a product ready for the fall, if that's what you're hoping for. If you get into this planning and it feels like it's overwhelming and all of these other things are coming into play, it's okay to put this on the back burner for a little bit, right? And to just get yourself ready for your year and then to enter back into it at a time that's more appropriate. So this is sort of a timeless process, and so it doesn't necessarily have to happen in the fall. So just be honoring your own needs and your own self in thinking about when is the best time to put this into play. So parts 2 and 3 are really refining your curricular structure and then starting to design the project elements. So that's really getting down into the lesson level, the partnerships, what the experiences are going to look like. And so that's that's sort of the nitty-gritty design in that second part. So I'm still learning about how to move my slides. There we go. So the agenda is we're just going to do a quick introduction and review the format, which we just did. I'm going to introduce you to a questions and feedback document. Jason, you have access to the agenda, the Google Doc agenda?
Yes, I do. I just have to find it.
Could you put that in the chat?
Yep, I have about 8 million tabs, so
I know.
it's going to take a second for me to pull it up.
We're all learning how to be technology wizards, right? So the questions and feedback is really, it's for today. You're welcome to put things in there today. If you just don't feel like asking a question in front of everyone, or you're just kind of thinking about something, you can enter your questions here. If you have a question about something or something seems unclear, it's most likely that it's also unclear for other folks. So just let us know and we can stop and make sure that we're clarifying things along the way. If you have feedback about the session, remember that this is, I mean, my the main goal for me is that you end up with a product that's useful for you. And so if this process is not working toward that, or you have feedback around just the design of these sessions, please let us know so that we can modify as we're going along, right? This is the beginning of a 3-part, and so we just want to make sure that it's working for you. So make sure you put session feedback in there. And then the other piece is I would invite you to link your project templates once we get started, and I'll show you how to do this. But I would love for us to have a list of all of our projects. And if it's okay with you, to be transparent about those projects, because what you're creating is an opportunity for you, and it's an opportunity for your students, but it's also potentially an opportunity for another school and another set of students. And so if you're open to being transparent about your process, I would ask that you put your name of your group and then the project title and link to the template. And I actually added a template that we created this year with a 7th grade class at the Telstar Middle School, and they're using the question, how do I use my voice to become a champion? So that's their theme for the whole year. It's a really exciting project. It's actually a 6 through 12 process, but this is the 7th grade question.
Hey, Cora.
So you can jump in there and see that.
Cora,
Yeah,
I seem to have every other document that we looked at the other day except for the agenda. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how I got all of them but that, but I can't seem to find that one.
So I can do that.
Sorry.
I'm gonna stop sharing so I can get into the chat. And then I'm gonna put the agenda link in there. Okay, so you all should have access to the agenda. The agenda is going to have all the links to all of the documents that you're going to need for this workshop. So I can give you just a minute to jump in there if you want to, but that's going to have the link to the agenda is going to have a link to that questions and feedback form.
Everybody have success opening that link up so you can see that document.
I guess that's my question is, how do I do that? Where would it be?
It
Is
would
it on
be,
my email?
it would be in another tab in your browser, Tammy. So if you're running Zoom through your web browser, you're going to have to maybe toggle back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, but what am I looking for?
You're looking for it's a Google Doc.
Do you see the chat box off to the side? Or in your menu down below, there's a little there's an icon that looks like a little cartoon talking bubble, and it says chat underneath.
Yep, sorry, I had gotten rid of it because he said we weren't going to use it. So.
No, that's fine. No, we put that in there just so that it was a quick way to access
I got it. I'm all set. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah,
So
no, it's fine.
I apologize.
No problems.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, goodness gracious. All right, so we've got the questions and feedback form, and we'll come back to that. And let me see if I can get into present mode so you can see. Actually, I'm going to stay in this mode so I can kind of play with the links. You can still see my agenda, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move into a quick refresher on the last 2 days, and really it's just looking at the definitions of interdisciplinary. Charlie, nice background. That's a good one. We'll look at planning for arts integration, which is a worksheet that I gave you all at the end of the last session. It's perfectly fine if you didn't fill anything out in that, and if you did fill it all out, that's perfectly fine too. And so and then we'll do a quick check-in for everybody. So what I'd like everybody to do after I go through the agenda is just introduce yourself, your guiding question if you have one, and then any content areas that are involved. We'll review the design process. We'll look at the design template. We'll have a little bit of a break. And then we will organize the template. So this is where you're going to share it with your team and start a Google shared folder and start to kind of create the process for yourselves for working together. And then we're going to jump into empathy mapping. So we're going to has anybody done an empathy mapping before? Okay. So the empathy mapping is really helping you to identify the needs of your users. And so in this case, your users are going to be your students and yourselves and potentially the community. So we're going to do a little digging into where our users are, and then we're going to think about design considerations. So we're going to imagine wild success. And that will be at the, that will conclude our day today. Any questions about the agenda? Okay, so I think I've gone through that. So let's just take a moment right now and just introduce yourselves and just check in with who you have here with your projects, and if you have a guiding question or what content areas are represented. And I'm going to try to take notes while you do that. So if you could introduce yourself and then tag someone after to introduce themselves, then we can keep it going. And Rebecca, I'm going to start with you.
Oh boy, this is great because our guiding question is in a Google Doc that I can't get to because you're on your screen share. Thank you so much. So my team and I were flurrying around saying, what's our question? We have it written down, but we can't get to it. So, but that's no problem. I'll introduce myself and then I'll tag someone in my team to, well, and this is giving them time to get the question up, right? So I'm Rebecca Edmondson. I teach K-8 music at the Connors Emerson School in Bar Harbor, and I have been assigned to 2nd grade. So if any of them fall ill, I am their sub. So I have invited them to participate in these workshops. So we are a team. So all my 2nd grade teachers are here. So who shall I tag? I'll either tag Kathy, Patty, or Marcia, whoever has the question up. I don't know who has it up.
Looks like Kathy.
Okay, let's go with Kathy.
Can you all hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Umke. I am brand new to Connors Emerson School in Bar Harbor, 2nd grade. Just moved to the island from Minnesota, where I taught 4th and 5th grade. I have our document up, and our working version of the question at this point is, how does kindness strengthen and build our community?
One more time, Kathy.
How does kindness strengthen and build our community? And I can tag Patty.
Hi, everyone. Patty Galliez. I teach at Bar Harbor too. I think our question stemmed from what has been going on in the world. And we kind of brainstormed, and I think kindness is a central theme, but also respect. Marcia added something to our brainstorming list that I'll let her share that ties beautifully with the theme of kindness and community building. So Marcia, I'm tagging you.
Marcia, we can't hear you.
Marcia, it could be just a connectivity issue. If you leave the meeting and then use the same link to try to get back in, it sometimes can fix it. I'll let you back in. So we'll come back to Marcia. Oh, technology is a wonderful thing when it works, right?
Why don't we jump over to Jen?
Hello, I am Jen Crandall, and I was not here for the first session, but Charlie Johnson invited me to collaborate. I teach at MDI High School. I'm the family and consumer science teacher, and we realized there were all kinds of ways that the arts could be integrated. So we started a little brainstorming yesterday, and yeah, I'll let him keep talking about it.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I've always seen connections among the different aspects, and have talked to Jen in the past about, oh, gee, we should do something with fabric design, or we should do something with this or that or the other, and how the arts work into that. And the ways, I think, are an essential question. And of course, we're able to modify it, right? It's not,
Yes.
we're not stuck in that if we decide we're going to change our minds a little bit. But I put down here, and just listening what was going on, in what ways can the visual arts have, in what ways can the visual arts enhance the understanding of other content areas? And Jen, I didn't mean to put the visual arts right at the top of things, but as we discussed things yesterday, oh, I'm Charlie Johnson. I teach at MDI High School, visual arts. And yeah, this is kind of interesting, making these connections and all of that sort of thing. I taught an online course at MDI about 6 years ago, and it's the only one that was ever taught there, I think. And my kids did everything asynchronously, and they were awesome. It was I was lucky to have a great bunch. And so some of this Zoom meeting and all of this is really a long time coming. I'm glad we're finally there. But the whole concept of the arts being embedded in everything is something I've kind of believed for a long time. And when we talked yesterday, Jen and I, we kept adding, we'd think of something and then we'd add something else to it that, oh yeah, we do this. And so I'm excited about seeing where this goes and where we can take it. And then finally, and I'll shut up, the sharing, the idea of sharing. I'm sure there are other high schools that have a consumer sciences and art department that maybe could take a model that we put together and actually use it. And I think that's kind of exciting too. I'm not sure where it's going to go at this point. We did this a few years ago, Jason, before you were here, and I collaborated with a social studies teacher, and we did a unit on World War I, but we couldn't sell it as a class to the school. So I think what we're looking at is just lessons, maybe right now, just kind of break out separated kind of lessons that could give students credit in the visual arts as well as Jen's discipline too. So yeah, I
understand that, Charlie, and I would say that I would submit to everybody here and statewide, frankly, that we're in a very unique set of circumstances now in public education in Maine, right? And we have an opportunity unlike any other to really, and I know that sometimes becomes, hyperbole, but we really do have an opportunity to reinvent the idea of interdisciplinary learning and project-based learning with students. So, hopefully this fire will catch this time, and we'll be able to expand this out even more.
Yeah, awesome. I'll choose, let's see. How about Patty? You're on the right of my screen there.
I've already spoken, but I'm going to tag Marcia again, and hopefully we can actually hear her. No worries, Charlie.
Oh, I got another window, more people. Let me shut my mic off.
Oh, Marcia, we still can't hear you. Oh, no.
Marcia, is there's a volume button at the top of your keyboard. Can you make sure that your computer audio is on? It's on?
Because you can hear us, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
Marcia, if you go to where your mute is, there's an up arrow. And under audio settings, there's another volume. There's an output volume. Is that turned off?
Or also make sure it's your computer mic that's selected and not a pair of headphones or. Sorry, Marcia. I wish I wish there was a way I could just be there to make that happen for you. But
Well, and it's an interesting, you know, working in this Zoom format, we can think about what it's like for kids, right? That when they're home and they're feeling really isolated and they haven't seen their friends, and all of a sudden they can't get their mic to work, or they're, you know, some of the schools that I've been talking to are doing streaming, and so they're buying new, you know, microphones, and they're going to have kids on computers and kids in the room, and just it does sort of help us to sort of empathize and think about what that's like for kids.
So, Marcia, can I share what you shared on our brainstorming list? Because I think it's an important component to what we're working on and what's driving our question. So Marcia thought that it would be good for kids to sort of learn that it's okay to have a different viewpoint about so many things. I mean, second graders disagree on a lot, actually. But to be able to understand that people come from different perspectives and it's okay to disagree, but to remain kind in that disagreement and understand that just because you disagree doesn't mean that it's licensed to be unkind. So that's a component of what we're going to be working on. Disagreeing respectfully. So I will tag Barbara Murphy.
Well, I have to tag Melissa Burkholt first because I'm a community partner and this is my first adventure here. So Melissa can at least explain what she hopes to accomplish.
Sure. So Barbara and I are in the beginning stages of, I should first just say that I teach general music pre-K through 5 in Bethel and Woodstock, 2 elementary schools in SAD 44. And Barbara and I are looking at a collaboration that would involve music and bird song and conservation, possibly birding as a part of that. Barbara's with the Mahoosic Land Trust, and I'll kick that back to her so she can tell you more about herself.
I'm the development director at Mahoosic Land Trust, and Melissa contacted me because our home base, Valentine Farm, we have a small birding program here, but it's not far from either school, and we are looking to deepen our outdoor education to local youth, but we're interested in doing it in a non-conventional way. So this is an avenue we're exploring with Melissa.
Excellent.
Melissa, you tag somebody.
Oh, okay. I will.
Tammy, can we go to Tammy?
Hi, I'm Tamara Lindsay, or Tammy, and I teach art at RSU 73, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grader. It's 5th grade, and it's actually the school that Charlie Johnson used to teach at. So Jay Elementary School is now Spruce Mountain Elementary School, which he might not have known. And, you know, this whole process in the spring, wasn't really feeling comfortable with it. And I have this wonderful library staff, and they're just very dynamic and excite kids. And I thought, we could like march down the hall together and do some interesting things. So I asked Amy Ryder, our head librarian, if we could come up with some interdisciplinary arts, reading, library, cross curricula, nature. We're gonna try to blend it all and come up with some really dynamic content for our students. So I'm gonna tag Amy Ryder.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm the librarian for RSU 73, and so I work with all 4 of the buildings. And yeah, we're excited to sort of combine library and art, and then maybe also pull in some of the other disciplines so that things as kids are learning. It's kind of lightening the load on the teachers, plus also just connecting the dots for the kids. And I've had quite an adventure to get here this morning, so I'm a little bit behind in knowing what you all are talking about, but I think I'm on the right track. And if not, let me know and I can share something different.
You didn't get any wet wax on your shoes, did you, Amy?
I did not know, but they were
Don't,
like,
we all
not
know,
right.
don't ever walk across those floors, right? Totally.
I at least got some books, so I do have a few
There you
basketballs
go.
here, so we got something to work with.
Good. Glad to have you, Amy.
Thank you.
How about let's go to Jessica next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Jones. I teach art at Waterville Alternative High School. We're part of the regular high school, but we're set off in a different building. We have much smaller groups of students. So we also have a teen parent program there, which is awesome. I get to see little babies come in, so that's fun. My guiding question, oh, and I have a bird in the room, I'm sorry. He loves joining in every time I have to talk to people. So my guiding question is 2 things. One is I want my students to have a sense of place. I want them to know more about their community. And the second part of it is about giving back. I think people feel really good when they can give back. And my students don't really have a chance to do that too often. I think they're on the receiving end a lot. So I have a low income district here. So it's about giving back. And that's it for now. I have lots of other parts of it, but, oh, and I'm working with Waterville Creates. And there's a few other partners that are giving money to the project. But Serena is at another meeting today, and then August is her vacation. So I got to try to get all the information I can and pass it along.
And we're going to be happy, Jessica, Cora and I both, to support you. We're going to support everybody after the fact as well. So as you're gathering all this information, you're processing it. If you need to double back around with us or whatever, we're more than happy to reconnect with you and try to find a schedule that'll make that work. So.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah. Let's go to Sarah next.
All right, I'm at Sedgwick Elementary School, and I'm working with, no one is here because no one could fit it into their schedule, but I'm working with the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers to create a whirligig park, along with a visiting artist who used to be a teacher in this area. And Charlie, I know you know her, Katie Hellman, and I think probably Cora knows her because she was part of Pathways.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we're going to create a large area where we use found objects, bicycle wheels, and wood and other materials to create whirligigs that will be, and I'd like to get the community involved, but with COVID, I don't know how well that'll work. But what our focus will be is sort of to have celebrating like our heroes park, where a lot of the whirligigs will honor different people that are heroes. Like I'm doing one as a template, which is John Lewis with a quote on the back. We all need to do good trouble. And so so we're going to be learning about different people, whoever we put on the whirligigs. And then the other part of it is the science, that first section is doing force and motion. So there's a lot of fuel for that in the whirligigs. So right now we're sort of in the very basic starting point because everybody is still in summer. And as much as I try to get someone to be involved in this, people just, time is of essence right now, and they don't have it. But I'm gathering the information for everybody. And I think it'll be a doable thing because I think I can get donations from the different, from community sponsors, and a lot of the stuff I can find at the dump. And we in Deer Isle have a very useful dump. So I know I can get a lot of the materials I need to do this. So I'm excited. We're not quite sure where we're going to put it. I kind of like to put it in a local, you know, an area that's within the community so the different schools can participate. But again, with COVID, I know a lot of the things that we've tried in the past, like last year, we were all gung-ho to do this one project, and then it all went down. So I don't know how community this will be. And it might be virtually community. People will make parts of the whirligigs and then I'll install them. So I don't know how that'll go. But it was inspired by an outsider artist in France, and his name is Andre, and I won't desecrate his name by trying to pronounce it, but it's Paillous. And he has in his garden that is entirely filled. And I would recommend anyone that wants to see some fabulous whirligigs. It's called CHEMINS de Transverse, and it's that guy. I can put a link in, but it's just absolutely spectacular. So anyway, that's our project.
Great, that's great. You should awesome. put a link in the chat if you have a chance.
Yeah. Sure. And let's try Marcia one more time and see if Marcia got her audio worked out. Fingers crossed. Oh no. Well, we'll keep plugging along, Marcia. Feel free, Marcia, put anything in the chat that you want. I'll be happy to be your voice, or you can send it to your teammates and they can be your voice too. Happy to.
Marcia, do you have headphones? No. Okay.
Well, at least she can hear us, Cora. So that's a bonus. She can hear the conversation.
These sound like really great projects. I think the challenge for me, and I'll just tell you that the way that I normally work is with a team, and really just developing and spending a lot of time with that one team. So having 5 teams is going to be a challenge for me. I just want to make sure that I give you the time that you need, and I also am already like, oh, do you know about this for that project? Or let me help you with this for that project. So I'll have to contain myself, control myself, and just help, try to help.
Don't control yourself.
Don't control myself. Okay, good. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen again. Does anybody, before we start back into the presentation, have any questions for anybody else at this point? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go into present mode. Let me just. There we go. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have done this activity, and we're not going to do it right now, but it's a great activity for you or for your staff, but it's also a great activity for kids when they're thinking about working together. And it's really a leadership compass project or activity. And what it essentially, it has Native American roots, and essentially what it says is that we're all sort of striving to be all of these different directions, but we gravitate towards one or two of them. And so when we work, there are some of us that are very action oriented. And so we call those folks the Norths, right? The Norths are just wanting to get things done. They're wanting to move through things, and they're not necessarily looking around at the periphery, right? They're very task oriented. And I'm sure that if you think about your staff, your faculty, that you know of some Norths that are on your faculty, right? There are also the Souths, and those are the people who are really concerned about other folks and want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard, and it's okay to take a little longer because it's important to hear what everyone has to say. And so the Souths, I don't know if there are any here on this call, but you can kind of think about that in your teams too. Who are the Souths that you're working with? The Wests are the sort of critical thinkers. Data and logic is really important to them. And so when you get into this really big idea space, it's uncomfortable for them because they're not sure about the details. They want to know the details before they can get to that place of feeling comfortable with the big idea. And I think you can think about those folks as well. So, and then there are the Easts, and the Easts are the really big thinkers. They're just full of ideas, lots of ideas all the time, and it's kind of hard to bring them down back into reality. Like, oh gosh, if we could do everything that you have in your brain right now, it feels swirly to other people. So we're gonna, people gravitate towards these things. And so often when I do a session with a whole group of people, it's really important for me to know what their direction is, because that helps me to provide them with what they need to be able to get through an activity or to get through a lesson. And so I would invite you within your groups to talk with each other about what direction you are, just so that you understand what you each are bringing to the table. It's always really great to have all 4 directions in the room, but it doesn't necessarily always make for smooth working process, right? Go ahead, Charlie.
I noticed there's a red arrow on your compass that's kind of north by northwest. Is it okay to blend? I mean, I'm looking at probably not opposite ends, but with something like that, there may be some people that are in between.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And so that's often when people do this activity, they can't really find themselves in one, but they find themselves in a couple of them. And so, yeah, it just gives you, it's sort of an objective way of saying what you need in a group, really, right? Like, I am a North and I really am focused on action. And so sometimes it's hard for me when we just get so mired in the details, or when you create this huge big picture idea and I have no idea how to actualize that, right? So it's helpful rather than, it's more objective than it is personal. And so I think it takes that piece out of it. But I am also going to present to you today some of the activities that we're doing are one of the directions, right? So we may start out in the West where it's really detail oriented, and I do that on purpose so that if there are Wests in this group, that you feel grounded and that you know that we are going to get to those details. It's not just all big picture. We are going to get to a product at the end. So I'll try to use those directions as I'm going through the presentation so that you kind of get an idea and a feel for what a task looks like from that direction as well. So if you wanted to use this activity with your students, if you Google North, South, East, West Leadership Compass, it will come up with lots of different activities. There are tons of variations on this, but it does really help kids to kind of find their place, especially high school kids, to kind of find their place within a group. So we'll just do a really quick refresher here. And this is where sometimes language really matters, right? And I think you heard Jason say interdisciplinary learning and also say project-based learning. I heard Sarah talk about, was it Sarah? Or no, Jessica talk about sense of place, right? So there's place-based learning, and there's community-based learning, and there's inquiry-based learning, and there's all of these kind of jargony words, and we sometimes can get sort of stuck in them, and sometimes they matter and sometimes they don't, right? So what I really want to give you permission to do is to think about, is language important? So if you're designing this unit, is there someone in your administration that's really wanting accountability for this unit, right? And so just helping you to think about choosing the language that's appropriate for the task that you're creating. And so interdisciplinary, I just give you kind of a minute to just read through, to read through those, but you can see that interdisciplinary is that methodology and language from more than one discipline, and it's usually focused around a theme, an issue, a problem, or a topic, or an experience. And the second definition is there too, so you can go back and reference those. But then we talked about at the last time that we met, arts integration, right? So there's interdisciplinary, and then there's arts integration. And I'm sure that you all know much more about arts integration than I do, but these are the two definitions that we pulled out. And this is really where arts is a part of and is the avenue through which students are applying and connecting the content, right? So this is not arts as separate, but this is arts as completely a part of the project. So you can think about that within your groups. Is this more of an interdisciplinary where they're having an arts experience and they're having a science experience, but they're unique to each other, they're focused on a theme, or is this an actual blend of the content together? Does that make sense? Okay. And again, it may not matter. It really depends on the level of accountability that you need to deal with your administrations, really. So the design process that Real Aspirations uses is loosely adapted from the design thinking process out of Stanford. And so I just put a graphic up here to help you to show the process, but I also want to be really clear that this is not linear. So it looks linear the way that it is, but it may be that you are at the ideate stage and then you go back to, in fact, you all are, right? You all have had ideas, you've all started to think about your questions, and then I'm going to take you back to empathizing, which is at the beginning, right? Empathy is there at the beginning, but it doesn't mean that you need to start there. So what we're hoping to do is get you to that green bubble of prototype, where you're really kind of pulling this all together into a product that you're going to test either this fall or this spring or whenever is appropriate for you. Any questions about that? Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
So is this like a written packet? Is it an online sort of entity that students and teachers could?
The design thinking?
Yeah, or the finished product. What is your thought of what the finished product would be that's presented to the students? Is it just an outline of all these sort of things that are available for students, or is it a tight little, this is the packet, or is it a variety of things? I just was trying to.
What I'm pulling you through is a process to create a unit.
Right.
So you will have a unit designed with standards that are aligned to that unit and with lessons or experiences or activities that will lead you through that unit. So the pieces that you create for students will be a part of that unit. So this is something that that you could provide to another teacher, and another teacher could take it and use it, or it helps to guide you through that process. Design thinking is actually a process that is all on its own. Actually, MDI has a class called Design Thinking where they work the students through the process of design thinking. We've just adapted that to a curriculum development process. And we'll go through that template in just a minute, so you'll see what that final product will look like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts or questions? So I have designed a template for you, and this is what some people think of when they see a template, like, oh, look at all that we have to create. And we went through this at the last session that I did with you. The templates are only as good as the thinking behind them, right? And the information that you enter into them. And they're only as useful as you need them to be. They can limit or squish your creative process, and we don't want that to happen. So what I am presenting to you is just a template. What I'm asking you to do is to personalize that. So there may be pieces of the template that you just X right out, you just delete them right out of the template right at the very beginning, and that's okay. So what we're offering is that process, and then you're going to take the pieces that you need to create the product that you need. They can feel confusing or overwhelming. So when I go through this, it's several pages long, and so it may feel like it's overwhelming at first, but we're going to take you right through it step by step. It can feel tedious, and sometimes we have this idea, and then all of a sudden we're asked to go back and look at the standards, and the air gets blown out of our sails, right? Because with the standard, nobody really wants to be mired in the standards language for a long time, right? So they're all essential pieces to thinking about student learning and to thinking about student outcomes, but some of them are more fun than others. It's hard to get to the right level of specificity with those templates. So I am offering you one template. When we get into the work sessions and I start to learn more about your projects, we may adapt that template considerably based on the project that you have. And so this is one of like 100 that I have that I can pull from to create something that's very unique for you. So a template can also feel very, very relieving, right? So sometimes when we ask teachers to create a unit, create an interdisciplinary unit, but we don't provide them with that structure or that process, it can be also really overwhelming. So the template can be, for the Wests, it can be really a great thing to have a template. So it provides a thoughtful overview. It makes sure that we don't skip steps. It ensures communication and collaboration. It helps us go from the mess to clarity. For some of you that saw the presentation before, you saw the graphic with the lines all over the place. And I said, this is what design looks like, right? It can be super messy. And then it gets to that place where it comes together. So the template helps to bring that together. It also helps you to sell your project, to articulate it to your administration, to your community partners, and also to your parents. Sometimes parents have an idea that they want their students to have a very traditional experience. And so if you're trying to do something different, it stretches them outside of their comfort zone. So having a clear narrative and a clear description of what your student outcomes are is really helpful for parents who are a little nervous as well. So let me go back. I just went forward before. So we're going to take a little bit of time to look through this template. And again, you have access to this from the link in the chat on the agenda. So you should be able to, did anybody have trouble accessing that? Okay.
So within the agenda, everyone that Cora shared in the chat box, there's some active links in that agenda that you can click on, and it will take you to these documents.
You can also see that in this template, there's a link to the session questions and feedback right at the top. So if you lose that session questions and feedback and you have a question after this session is over, I'll be looking at that in between now and August. So if you get up in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes like I do, and you have this idea or you have this question, you can put it in there and I'll be able to see it and respond to it. So the template really asks you to think about creating a title, and then implementation dates and grade level, and then naming the teachers or the organizations that you're working with. And then it asks you to think about a project description. Some of you already have your theme and your driving questions. Some of you need to still be formulating that theme and driving questions. And so that's where you'll start in this forum, is thinking about that theme and that driving question. The project description may be something that you're continuing to create. And so it may not be, again, this is not a linear process. So you have to enter it where you are. And so creating the description before you even know what the project is can be really hard, but it also can be a great activity. So you have to decide within your groups whether you go down to one box to the next box to the next box, or whether you enter them in as you have ideas. Sometimes there's a primary content focus. Sarah was talking about her project with the whirligigs and about science and force and motion. It didn't sound like in that project that science is the driving content, but in some cases there is a driving content. So if that's applicable to you, you would put that there. It may not be. And in that case, you can just delete that line, and that's kind of satisfying too, to get it right out of there. The culminating product, it's really great to think about, like Sarah has a really great idea, a visual in her brain about what that final project is going to look like. And so thinking about putting that into writing, being really clear about that final product, and then working backwards from that final product. Community connections, that's Melissa and Barbara are going to really think about, like, what does Mahoosuc have to offer, and then how can Melissa get her kids to Mahoosuc, and how is that relationship going to evolve based on that culminating project and the driving question. For high school students, and even sometimes with younger students, I think it's really great to put in career connections. Kids don't, I think for those of you that are elementary teachers, right, the kids seem to tend to 10 or 15 different careers, right? I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a nurse, I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be a lawyer. And so helping them to see that there are amazing careers out there that are different and unique is I think a real asset, especially in Maine with our aging population. A lot of the work that Rural Aspirations does is around inspiring kids to find a place for themselves here in Maine as innovators and entrepreneurs, and that a lot of that has to do with being creative and in the arts world. So helping kids to see that being an artist can be a really viable and amazing future if they so choose it. Any resources that you need, internal and external. So it's really important for you at the beginning of the project to think about what are those resources, and then how are you going to make that ask to your administration or to your community, right? So if you need more books, or if you need materials, where are you going to get those? What's your budget look like, and how are you going to create that ask? When you go to your administrator and ask for funds for these things, it's can be very impressive for them if there's a template that's all filled out with your description and your outcomes and all of those pieces all set and ready to go. So that's the piece that we will work on first, is this overarching project description to get a really good idea of what your project is. And then we'll look at student outcomes. And so some of you are very focused, the Wests are very focused on standards, and they're looking at their standards first, whereas the Easts are not at all concerned about the standards, and they're really looking at, they have their own idea of what their student outcomes are, right? So I actually have 3 different places for you to put standards, and that's based on your own interests, or based on the way that you think about things. So student outcomes, if you wanted to enter there, is really thinking about just almost from your heart, right? Like, what do you want students to know, and what do you want students to be able to do? Not the text of the Common Core or the text of the next gen science standards, but just the sort of just the creative language that you're using to think about what you want your students to know. So you can think about that from, and if it's an arts and a social studies project, then you can erase all of those other lines. If it is within all of those disciplines, then you keep those lines, and together you really think about what are the outcomes that you hope from students. If you are more accountable to the standards, and some of you are, and some of you aren't, but if you are really needing to think about the Common Core standards or the Next Gen Science standards, then you can get right into that academic standards language in that next box down. Some of you have standards, some of you have performance indicators, some of you have learning targets, some of you have power standards, right? There's all sorts of words for those, and those are specific to your district. So you'll use the language that's specific to your district. The process standards are really, this is where Rebecca's project really comes in. Rebecca in the second grade, the second grade team, right? I mean, you're really looking at those guiding principles or those habits of work or those habits of mind, and really helping kids to see how those are connected to the things, the interactions that they're having in the classroom, and the interactions that you're having with them, and the interactions they're having with their families, with their community. And so those are really those process standards. So it may be that you design a project that's very process standard focused, really around kindness, and it's not about force and motion, it's about the way that you interact with people, right? And those projects are just as important as the projects that are really steeped deeply in the standards. So here you have, it looks overwhelming, right? To have 3 different boxes that you have to fill out. You don't have to fill all of them out. What I would say is if your project is strongly academic focused, I would challenge you to enter the process standards in there to really think about what habits of work, habits of mind are you asking your students or are you hoping your students build through the process? So some of you have guiding principles, some of you have habits of work, some of you have habits of mind, some of you have 21st century skills. There's, again, all sorts of jargon around that. So specify that when you get the template, you share it with your team, create that line the way that it reflects your school.
Is everyone familiar with how to make a copy of this and then to share it with your team members? Okay, if there's anyone that's struggling with that, as long as there's one person for each team that knows how to do that, they can make the copy, and then all you have to do then is share it with the new people on your team, and then you'll be able to all collaborate on the same document.
And we'll actually take some time in this workshop to do that. So by the end of this workshop, you should have a shared folder, Google folder, with a document of your own in here that you guys can start to work with on your own. So after that, we're thinking about empathy mapping. There's a link to this. This is actually an internal link on this document. So everything on this, the empathy mapping and the design considerations are actually just right down below. So here's your empathy mapping, and we'll get back to that too. But that's really kind of thinking about what are your students seeing, what are they thinking, what will they be doing, and what are they feeling? And this is just an immensely important part of that second grade project, right? Really getting into the minds of those second graders, like what are they seeing at home or in the community? What are they thinking and what are they feeling? So really helping you to kind of get to that place where you're empathizing with them so that the project that you create is really focused on their needs. I'm going to scroll back up. Sorry to make you dizzy. The design considerations are down below, and we'll do those together this afternoon. And then you get into like the Norths are finally like pulling their hair out, right? Because we haven't even gotten to the action or the process, and how much more of this can we take, right? So this is where we get into the phases of learning. So when you think about your project, we're going to divide that into parts throughout the year, or units or sections, or whatever it is that works best for you. So we'll identify the phases of learning. You may have more than 3. If you feel like you only have 1, I would challenge you to try to break that up into a before, a during, or after, and I'll work with you on that. I think that having at least 3 phases is good for a project. And then you start to dig into your phases. So phase 1, this is what we're going to do. This is our theme. It might be the same driving question. It could be a different driving question. When Rebecca emailed me about the 2nd grade project, Jason and I, she had a series of questions. And so you may have a series of questions that guides that 2nd grade project, and it all sort of culminates under one driving question, which is what you outline at the very beginning. So we've got guided content area. We have a lesson sequence. So you can, this is where the specificity of planning is going to be very specific to each of the teams. There are some teachers who write lesson plans. There are some teachers who get in the car in the morning after brushing their teeth and running out of the door, and they try to figure out what they're going to do on the ride there, right? So you have to figure out how your team is as far as planning, and try to be honoring what the needs of your team members are, and then try to figure out what the level of specificity of planning that you need. I have lesson plan templates if you need them. I didn't enter them in here, but I'm happy to share them with you if you want to get down to that detail. I did link in a day-to-day planning document that's been helpful for a couple of schools that I'm working with that are doing real team teaching where they have the kids together. And for a certain amount of time, they actually have, I think I shared this project, the East Grand School Sense of Community, Sense of Place project, where they have project weeks where they go 3-week units where all the teachers are planning together. So that helps you to see who's the lead teacher for that day, what's the schedule for that day, what are the outcomes, what are the materials that you need, that kind of thinking to be able to be ready for that next day. And again, this specificity really depends on your team, right? Remember that those Wests in the team are going to need those details. So it's going to be really important. If you have someone on your team that says, I'm a West, then it's even if you're a North or an East and it's hard for you to do that, that will be your challenge, is to get more Westy and think about how you're going to get more specific on your plans. And then we have assessment strategies. So I don't know if any of you are going like this, like the icon, the emoji that's like, oh my God, all this stuff, this is so much, right? We'll take it step by step so you'll be able to get through it. It won't feel as overwhelming as we're going through. So your assessment strategy is really thinking about your critical content, which you've already outlined at the very beginning. So you might want to copy paste that down. But thinking about your formative assessments, your culminating project is something you can copy paste right down. And then your summative assessment strategy, like how are you going through that and who's assessing that work? So if Barbara and Melissa are working together, does Barbara have an opportunity to engage in that assessment process with Melissa? So those students are getting assessment from the community partner as well as from Melissa in the classroom. And then any plans for differentiation. Schedule for the week, I've given you 2 different options. Some of you, it may be like when we think about that 2nd grade team, that's a long-term theme, right? So it might not be as specific as a schedule for each week. And so in that case, you would just delete these parts if you don't need them, but they're there for you if you do need them. Am I going too fast? Is there any questions? Okay. Any resources to support learning? So we're looking at internal resources, external resources, and you started to do that up at the top in this template. So if you don't need that part, you can delete that out, but also your communication strategy. This is super important now. It wasn't necessarily as important September of last year, right? We didn't really need to be as transparent in our planning as we do now, especially with families who, I think when we're in a virtual space, there are families who are very engaged with their students' learning, and then there are families who are less engaged with their student learning, right? And we almost have an opportunity in that place for those parents who are really engaged to be very open and transparent with our communication so that they can then take that in their own family way and create their own magic with it, right? And that provides you space to know that those students are taken care of. They're having an experience that you have outlined for them, and that parents are working them through that. And then you get to focus on those students who you know don't have that support necessarily at home, but really do need that support from you. So that almost brings the parents on as partners. So thinking about that, especially in that virtual space, how are you communicating this to parents, and how are you helping parents to see that they can take this and they can run with it on their own, that they can be inspired and create on their own as well. And then there's a plan for remote delivery. So we're thinking about, so what I'm hoping is that you're planning this project thinking about your own school's plans, but raise your hand if you know what's happening in the fall. Right, so yeah, so I think I was just with a school yesterday who I think the board was going to decide tomorrow whether they were going with a hybrid model or whether they were going with an in-person model. So, I mean, I don't even think the state has come out with the colors yet. Jason, have they?
The colors are supposed to be today, I believe.
Yeah. So
yep,
in
the first round of colors.
Weeks, that's all going to be happening, right? It's going to happen really, really fast. And so as you're thinking about your project, you may think, you know what, this is an amazing project for in-person. It's not as much a great project for virtual. So I'm going to plan it for in-person, and we're going to wait until we get to that in-person place to implement. Or you're thinking, I'm going to design a project that's ready for anything, right? So if that's the case, then we have this plan for remote delivery. So we're thinking about a technology platform, we're thinking about a timeline, a communication plan for students, engagement and connection strategies, which I just talked about, around how are you engaging and connecting parents and students, any changes that you make to the assessment strategy, any plans that you have for supporting your special ed or gifted and talented population. There's also a piece I think I should add in here about supporting your support staff. So how are you communicating with your support staff in that virtual space and utilizing their skills to the best of your abilities to make sure that you're supporting the students that you have in that virtual realm. And then communication plan to parents. At the bottom, there's a bit of a reflection. So after this is all done, it would be great for your team to get together and just talk about, how did it go? What would you change? What would you keep? What parts were difficult? What opportunities or additional opportunities emerged? And then really try to give yourself permission to celebrate, right? That this project it's hard to design projects. I heard a teacher say the other day, they had a presenter come in and they said, good teaching is way harder than bad teaching, right? So that it's going to take a lot of work to get these projects done and to work through them. So give yourself permission to grow in the same way that you give your students permission to grow. You are a student of this work, and so it's important to give yourself some space around that.
And I said this to you, Cora, when we met earlier this week. I'm so thrilled about the thoroughness of your template, because there's just so much in going through this process that by using the template, when you get to the end, you have such an increased sense of knowledge about the design and the structure of this, that when you go back, and I said when, not if, but when you go back to do it again with other content areas and other partners, it will get easier every time. So I just think, I know it's a lot, everybody, it's a lot on the template, but it really does help to take everything in bite-sized pieces. So thank you, Cora, for taking the time to assemble it in the way that you did.
Sure. Any other questions or concerns or thoughts about the template? Tammy, does that help you to see what the final product will be?
Yeah, I think Amy and I were thinking about it would be a remote unit that could access if, we ended up in that situation. So we had a backup plan that was ready to go, but
that's perfect.
We can work on that.
Okay.
But thank you for the overview.
Okay. So I think I'm sharing again, right? So let's go. There we go. Can you see my screen? All right, so I'm going to give you some space right now to personalize that template. So what I'm asking you to do is go on to the agenda and I think first you can create a shared folder and then copy that template and share it with your team and then update the template to the point where you have it right now. So Jason, we can do that. Do you guys want to get into Zoom rooms to do that? It might be more helpful for that to happen.
I can do that. Give me just a minute to get everybody where they need to be.
Is there anyone on the call who might want support with setting up Google folders or making copies, sharing? Okay, Tammy, we'll put somebody in with your group.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I need 5. I think I need 5 rooms.
That's
total.
what I have too.
Yeah. Create rooms, but I want to do it manually. So give me just a second to get everybody in where they need to be.
Which is good, Jason, because once we have this set up, then we have it set up. Is that right?
In theory, yes. I'm going to keep tweaking that in the background while you're doing
your. So it's going to take a minute for him to do that. So if you need to get up and move around or get a drink or whatever, feel free.
Yeah, right. Sorry. Should have been doing this along the way, but.
No, it's okay.
And then, in theory, yeah, options. Make sure that I don't close anything out early. How much time, Cora, do we want to devote to this?
Let's say 15 minutes.
Okay.
Actually, can I change that? Can we say a half hour for that?
Of course.
So once you get into your rooms and you're all on your own documents, if you could share those with Jason and I, that would be great so that we also have access to your documents. But you'll want to just choose somebody, one person in your team to take the lead on that, right? To make your folder, to make the template, and then share it with everyone else. But once you have the template, what I'd like you to do is use that top part, the project description, and fill in what you can. And it might be only a couple of boxes at this point, and that's okay. But I'm gonna give you from 9:30 until 10 o'clock to kind of put the pieces that you have swirling in your brain into that first part of the template, into that project description part of the template. Go ahead, Sarah. You're on mute. No.
Okay, cool. I'm the only one in my group. So I'm going to be I just already shared it with the other people that will be involved, but they won't be right now getting into this, but this is okay. But the only thing is I don't have your email. I only have Jason's. So I can't share it.
I'll put my email in the chat. I think, Jason, did you put Jason with Sarah with Jessica?
Yeah, I put you in with Jessica, who's also working as the lone person on her team right now. So at least the two of you can bounce some ideas off each other as you're working your way through setting things up.
Okay, cool.
Yep, if that helps.
And my email is now in the chat.
Okay, this is weird because I can either be on this page or in the chat. I'm not quite sure how to scroll from the document to the Zoom chat.
If you copy, Sarah, in the Zoom chat, if you copy select Cora's email address and do Control-C to copy, then you can
got
go over.
got it.
Yep, you can go over to your other screen and you can paste it in when you share.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
it's fine.
of course.
No problem. Listen, everybody's brains are full, so even even things that we've been doing for a million years still just don't really occur to us in the right way. So I totally understand that. So Cora, I have the rooms all set up. Are we ready to roll? And I have it set up too that if anyone needs to pop back into the main room for any reason, you can do that to ask a question or whatever, and then I can stick you back in the room you came from. So.
Okay.
Okay. All right. It's going to automatically send you to your rooms. So think about what you've done as you get sent to your room. No, just kidding. Have a good time starting everything, everybody.
There we go.
There.
How's it going so far?
I think it's going fine.
Good.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just sharing my screen right now. Okay. So we're back from break. It's a fantastic day outside today. It seems like we don't really have the humidity that we did the last couple of days, so I'm feeling very thankful for that. So the way that we have this second part, I almost feel like it's the afternoon, right? So the way that we're going to work through the afternoon, but it's only 10 o'clock, 10:15. So we're going to talk about, or we're going to have some time to work through empathy mapping, but I wanted to check in with you to see if you needed a bit more time with your teams, because we're willing to put you back in with your teams if you feel like that would be helpful to have a little more time. Okay, I'm getting some thumbs up there. So let's do that until, how about if we do that until 10:45? Does that sound good? And that will give us a chance to get into the rooms that we didn't get into too, to talk a little bit with you about your projects. So let's do that, and then we'll jump into empathy mapping right after that. Jason's working his magic right now. You can see it in his face.
All right, everybody ready to go? These rooms aren't going to automatically close, but I will close them at 10:45. So you'll get a little warning that you'll have 60 seconds to finish things up. So, okay, here we go. And Cora, do you want to go to a room automatically that you didn't go to yet?
I would love to jump in with Melissa and Barbara.
Perfect. Let me do that before. All right, now we should be all set to go. Tammy's still MIA, huh, Amy?
Yes. I'm just going to start filling in some of the parts of this that I know.
Hoping, last time, so I don't know, Amy, if you were with us during that last session when Tammy had a bird in the house
Yes.
and the dogs were trying to get the bird. So I hope we don't have another scenario like that.
Yes. Our main issue that we're having right now is I think we have a good basic idea. It's super hard to get out of the details of, are we going to have kids 1 day a week or 3 days a week, and how's that going to affect our schedule? And so like doing a bunch of work and then finding out that it doesn't fit the schedule that we're given.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I think what we're trying to do is come up with something like that would be a home piece to accompany whatever they're doing in school, assuming that we're not going to be 100% back in school, but it's hard not to get drowning in those details.
So when Cora and I totally understand that. When Cora and I met on Tuesday to talk about this set of 3 sessions that we were going to do, we kind of landed on the idea that it would be fantastic if you would plan for an eventuality that you're with your students under reasonably normal circumstances, because the thought is, because this is temporary, eventually we'll be back to something that resembles what we did before. And so that may be the ideal time to do this project or this unit or this set of activities with students. It may not be, you may be designing something that won't take place this fall. It may take place a year from this fall. It may take place in the spring. It might be, it could be a fourth quarter thing. And then from that, she has a great method that we're going to get into over the next 2 sessions of being able to then pull back a little bit and adapt it for a virtual or hybrid scenario. So from a design standpoint, I would imagine it as the collaboration as we have students as normal, and then we can make the tweaks and things that we need to adapt it from there. Because it will be easier for you to all experience what this type of design process is if you consider it as if we were in normal circumstances. Does that help at all? I know it makes it not as realistic in the moment, but at least it will help you work through the process so that you're learning how to do this better, so that you can then branch out and you can replicate this with other content areas and make other connections later on.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just, I wish Tammy was back because, I'm here to support her in what she needs for art. And I know that that's what she wants, is something to do, even if it's just like to hold in her back pocket in case we go remote again.
Sure.
Or if we are in hybrid, to use in the remote option is what she's designing for. Sure.
But I also think from a library science standpoint, you're in a really prime position to be able to take these same strategies and to branch out and become a great hub, I think, for your whole school, to have these intersections of collaboration here and there, which is really an exciting position for you to be in, I think. But yeah. I get the support capacity as well. I get that.
Yeah. My hope, if we do, it's really looking like we're probably going with a hybrid model of some sort. And if we do, I hope that when the kids are in school, at least once a week, they'll continue to come to the library so that they can get the materials that they need, or that we will be pushing them out to them. And that if we have to, something's got to go because we only have them a limited amount of time. So something has to go remote. I'm thinking the instruction piece.
Sarah, when we get into this next section, we're going to split into Zoom rooms again. I'd love to just get an overview of your project, and then we can catch up with the empathy mapping as we go along.
All right, we're back. We're back recording because we got everybody back.
Great. Okay, so we're going to jump into the next, hold on just a second. Hold just a second. I'm going to share my screen really quick, and we're going to jump into empathy mapping. So this is the exercise of kind of zooming in on your project. And I know all of you are kind of in this place where you're thinking like, let's just keep working on the project, but I'm going to pull you out just for a bit to kind of get you into the place of thinking about your users. So really, this is very much steeped in the design thinking process philosophy. And really, it's about just trying to put yourself in the place of those that are going to be experiencing your unit, but also to give some space to yourselves. And so one of the things that we do a lot when we do training sessions with folks is thinking about the designer and the designer's needs, right? And we as teachers are not always good at advocating for ourselves and what we need. So please take some time as you go through this empathy mapping to really think about what you need to be able to make this successful as well. So the empathy mapping process you will find through your integrated unit template, and all of you should have your own copies. Can you give me a thumbs up if you all have your own copies of those at this point? Rebecca, does your team have copies?
I don't think so. Are you saying that we should make a copy and place it in our folder?
Yes, you should make a copy and share it with each other so you're all looking at one copy that's the same.
You mean of the planning template?
Yep, the planning template,
we-
which I'm
we
on
did
the
that.
wrong. Oh, okay.
We did that.
Okay. So if you go down on the planning template to the empathy mapping, you can either click this link, which will bring you right straight down to the end of the document, or you can scroll down, one or the other. And you can see that there's just a quick description here. Part of the design process is investigating the needs of your user. So in this case, it's students, teachers, and in some of your cases, it's community as well. And from those needs, you're gathering insights or ahas that will help you to design more effectively and possibly more efficiently. So this is really to help you to bring those students and those teachers into the center of your thinking. So what I'm going to ask you to do together is to brainstorm what are your students seeing right now? What are they thinking? What are they doing? And then what are they feeling? And so kind of put yourself in that place and just jot down some ideas. It's just a brainstorm between you, and then use yourself or use each other to kind of think about what insights. So what does that tell you about how you need to plan your project? What does that tell you about? And we were talking about this when I went in with Melissa and Barbara. We're talking about, I've done some work over in the Telstar region, and they've had some, there have been some kids with connectivity issues. And so they just, there's this real sense of isolation and loss that the teachers are very worried about. And so when I was planning with the 6 through 12 there last week, they were really feeling like they needed to bring that social emotional piece to the front and to the core of their project and make sure that that was in the project and that they had space for that, because they were trying to identify the needs of their users. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to pop you back out into your teams, and you're going to work on the empathy mapping. And I believe that we have a half an hour to do this. So we're actually empathy mapping. So we're just a touch behind, which is okay. But let's go 15 minutes in small groups to do empathy mapping. And then we're going to bring back. So if you could just choose a couple of insights from this work from each of your teams to share back with the other teams, that would be great. Are you following? Does that seem okay? Okay, good. I'm so much of my facilitation, it depends on like body language and seeing and feeling people, and this is such a hard place to do that.
It's hard, absolutely, totally. I've gotten a little bit better at it over the last 4 months, but I wouldn't, no, not even close. But
Cora,
okay, back into Zoom rooms, and I'll go in with Sarah.
You got a question, Charlie?
Yeah,
oh,
I
question.
do. Cora, I mean, are we guessing here?
Yes.
So here's what we've got. Here's what we've kind of started to plan. And now we're just taking guesses at what we're going to use and how that's going to apply to students. And when you say teachers, is that each other?
Yeah.
Back to each other?
Yeah, and what you're doing right now is you're taking a step back from planning.
Okay.
So right now, in the beginning, just now, we gave you a chance to jump into that template and get a feel for it.
Right.
Right now, you're stepping out of that, out of your planning work, and into the place of trying to understand your user.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any more questions before we pop into our rooms? All right.
Back.
Here, so, because Jessica had to go to her staff meeting, so I think we may have everybody.
Yep, Sarah and I didn't get to empathy mapping because we got all consumed in the project, and so we'll have to get back to that in the next time we get into a session. How did the empathy mapping go for the rest of you? Does anyone want to share any insights that they had? Charlie, you've got your hand up, but your phone's on, but you're on mute.
I am?
Oh, you're not.
You're good now.
Should I speak a little bit louder? No. Hey, Jen and I, we rocked that one. We got the whole thing filled out. We're all ready to go. No, we have a bunch of questions. I think the chart and the list kind of created a lot of questions for us too. And so I think maybe that was part of the intent but I think what it boiled down to was we need to learn where kids are and how they're feeling, and we need to recognize those sorts of things as we move forward this project, no matter what form it takes.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Jen.
I was just saying to Charlie that when we were doing the teacher part, one thing I really like about this is that, you know, I've tried to, in some of my classes, bring in other people or, you know, take my students down to the wood shop or something, but it was great for my kids, but it didn't necessarily benefit the other teacher. I was just kind of using them, you know, benefiting from them. I'll say it that way. But this is really a collaboration, and although there's some anxiety there that we recognize that you always have when you know, step out of your own space, it's also kind of exciting. Mm-hmm. And I'm always the first one to say, I am not the expert, but let's find somebody who is and bring them in. And so to be able to have Charlie or even Charlie's students, you know, come in and be the experts to help out and then get the kids collaborating, it's very exciting.
Good. Anyone else want to share any insights that came from that? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to share that I think it's a really important tool to use to sort of just a reflection piece, like really consider what the kids might be feeling or thinking. I think we do that on the fly so much and don't always make a concerted effort to really dive into that piece, or even how we're feeling, other than the feelings of when we're feeling anxious about things. Mm-hmm. So I think, thank you for that activity. It was great.
And I like the idea that it's a template that you can fill out. And I really see us being able to use this in other circumstances as well, because we think that we're really, and a lot of us are really good at that on the fly, just like you said, Patty. But when we go back 3 weeks from now and try to remember what it was, sometimes our recollection isn't as accurate as we think that it should be, right? So if we have a place where you can sort of document that, then you can really go back and you can authentically look at it if that circumstance or situation, you know, appears again or in some weird modification.
Well, and also as your plan starts to develop, as teachers, we roll with that, right? Like we get right into it and we start developing that plan, and then all of a sudden we're just in the middle of that plan and we forget to step outside of it. And so coming back to that empathy map and looking at your plan and seeing if they match. You know, is our plan, or does it reflect the needs of our users? And if it doesn't, then how do we go back and adapt a little bit so that it is meeting that need? So I'm going to do a little bit of change up on the agenda just because I'm getting the feel from you of energy around planning. And so what I'd like to do is just pose to you, and you tell me if you want to go a different direction. I'm happy to do that too. But what I'm thinking is that we wait on design considerations until we get back together the next time, and we give you the rest of today to go back into your groups and continue with your ideation, kind of planning, thinking about those ideas, getting them down on paper, really formulating that into something that you feel solid with before you leave here. And then next time when we get together, we can start out with design considerations, which is essentially developing your working vision of success for your project. How does that sound? Okay, good. I'm reading you right. That's good. That's good. So we're going to jump into Zoom rooms again. Sarah, you're going to be solo in your project, but I'll try to jump back in with you at some point to continue our conversation. But I'd love to start with the second grade Connors Emerson team, Jason, if I can.
Yep, I'll move you there. Give me just a second. Make sure I'm putting you in the right room.
Before Jason hits that button, any questions or thoughts from the team? Okay.
Cora, how long, what do we want for a wrap-up time today? Do you want everybody to come back at maybe 11:45, and that would give us time to, okay.
Yep.
So we'll do another 30 minutes, everybody. And I'm gonna stay in the big room for the most part in case people get bumped out or need to hop back in. But if you do need help or support or whatever, you can send somebody can leave your room, come back to the big room, and I'll be happy to come and join you. Okay.
I have a quick question. Can we present in the Zoom rooms? Can we present to each other?
You should be able to share your screen. You should be able to do everything that you can do in the big room. You should be able to do in your breakout rooms, Charlie.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, you're welcome. Good question. Any other questions before we zoom to our Zoom rooms? All right. Happy working.
There we go. Okay, I just want to give you guys a couple minutes to just talk about how's this been? Is it okay? Is it working out for everybody?
I'm seeing
Anyone
lots of
want
thumbs
to
up.
share any insights on their projects or the evolution of their projects?
Not yet.
I feel like we've already overshared a little bit. So, but yeah, we're down into student outcomes and looking at how that ties in. We actually went on the web and looked at some videos around what we're trying to do, YouTube videos, and how those would connect, and maybe engage students a little bit toward the goals that we had. And so we were kind of looking at resources. Now we're trying to figure out how we're going to approach standards and skill sets and those sorts of things. So
Okay.
yeah, I think Jen, I think she'll agree. We found the template really helpful as far as guiding us toward those goals.
Okay. All right. So as we separate from each other, you're still thinking about this work and it's still moving and shaking in your brain. And so don't let these sessions stop you, right? If you keep going, then just keep going and we'll catch up with you wherever you are when you come back together. If you don't see each other from now until is it August 6th?
Yeah, next week.
Yeah. If you don't see each other between now and then and you don't get any work done, perfectly fine, right? It's okay. We'll pick it up where we left off. I just want to share that with the second grade team, their theme is year long. And so I actually gave them a different template to work on around content sequencing to help them map out their year and then to start to see the commonalities between those. So that's something that if maybe Jen and Charlie, that might be something for you guys if you want to kind of think about your sequence and where those things happen in your school year. But just an example of how we can adapt the template to meet the specific needs of each of your projects. And so don't get bogged down by the template. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and we'll do a quick review of where we're going to head next time. Oh, I just need to go into present view. Okay, everybody see that? All right, so today we didn't get to design considerations but that's okay because it didn't feel right for right now. So we're going to jump that into the next section. But part 2 and part 3 are really refining that curricular structure and the design elements, and then project design and the phases of learning. So you're going to continue to refine that template, and then also start to think about the shared virtual platforms that you might use if you go into a virtual space. And I imagine that as we get together next week, there are going to be schools that have a better understanding of what the fall is going to look like, and there are still going to be schools that aren't quite sure. So we can modify as we go. So part 2 and part 3 are really essentially, I actually haven't developed a full agenda for that third day, because I just want to see, or for the third session, because I just want to see where you guys are at and make sure that it's adaptable to meet your needs. So I'll probably design that agenda after part 2, just to make sure that we're getting where you need to go. And then the last slide is this. Just remember that you need to take care of yourselves, right? And that this is a super stressful time for teachers, and that you only get this small window of time open right now without this craziness of the fall. And once fall hits, it's going to be a swirly craziness. So give yourself time and rest and get as much space, personal space, as you can to build yourself up so that you can be fully there for your kids come the beginning of September and August. The other piece is that Jason and I are both available via email. So if you get stuck or you have a question, please don't hesitate to reach out and we'll get back to you. I do have workshops straight through. So if I don't get back to you right that day, I will get back to you within a couple of days. So, so reach out to us if you need anything.
I'm dropping my email address in the chat box just in case people don't have it, and maybe a few that don't.
Any other thoughts or questions? Remember that there's the questions worksheet that's at the top of your template. If you guys could just take a minute and after this session and put in a link to your templates so that we all can see those, we can kind of jump in and out if we need to. But if you need help with that technically, I'm happy to provide that for you to put that link in there. And then if there are those 2 o'clock in the morning questions or concerns, please put them in that document or send via email, and we can adapt as we need to. But you are the center of this workshop, and if it's not working for you, it's not working for us. So we just need to make sure that that we are being empathetic of our users, right? Charlie, go ahead.
Where did you want us to put the template link, our template link?
If you scroll up to the top of your template,
okay,
the very top of your template,
right,
there's a questions and comments link right at the title.
Questions and feedback. Yep.
If you click on that, that will open you up to another document. And you scroll down to the second page of that document, you'll find.
Got it.
Got it. Perfect. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions that you want to share before we close?
I just want to remind everyone that our 2 sessions next week are scheduled for Thursday and Friday at the same time span. So we'll start at 8 o'clock on Thursday. And like Cora said, we have a general idea of what that third session is going to look like, but we want to really see what you're able to come up with either in the interim and or including the next session, and then we'll be able to fine tune for next Friday. The link that you used for this session will work for the other 2 as well, so you may want to grab that from your email. I resent it to everybody this morning. I think it should work well for you. But if you have any issues or you can't find it on Wednesday when you're trying to prep for Thursday, let me know and I'll be happy to send it out to you. And I will also send out a link to this recording as well once it gets rendered up in my Google Drive, so that you can go back and review it if you're so inclined, or share it with a partner that maybe wasn't here this time or couldn't stay the whole time.
And Jason and I will stay on for 10 minutes or so if anyone wants to stay on with a specific question.
Yep. Absolutely.
Go enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you all so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Looking forward to continuing to work with you. Thanks again, Cora. Appreciate it.
Thank you.